If you're at all familiar with something called Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, that tipping point kind of set me off on my own kind of hero's journey. So if you're not familiar with it, this is basically Joseph Campbell was a philosopher who broke down all the greatest stories into time into their common elements, where our hero is at home, everything is fine, they get some sort of call to adventure, meet a mentor along the way, go through numerous challenges and other problems, hit a low point across their journey, come to some sort of realization, transform, and then ultimately accomplish their goal. And for me, really that tipping point was my call to adventure to start Gravity AI. Which we're about a year and a half in full time on. And it's actually one of the first marketplaces for models, for algorithms that we built. And really, this is the best time ever for us to be doing this and for you to be considering monetizing whatever you've created. And there's a very simple reason for that, and I call it the tech accessibility curve. So the tech accessibility curve is actually pretty intuitive. It just means that over time, different technologies become more and more accessible to different parties. So if you take a look over history, you see that across numerous things like websites and apps, and certainly we're going to talk about data science. I'm actually convinced that the process of technology becoming more accessible is probably related to, product managers like myself reaching out to my CTO and saying, hey man, I need this changed, and then I change my mind 1,000 times, and it drives that person crazy. I feel so bad for engineers who have to put up with folks like me. So finally, our CTO's like, I just can't deal with this anymore. I'm just gonna build you a thing to control it, and now you have all the capabilities that you need, and then that escalates and that escalates. And there's no better illustration of that than early internet websites, right? So in the first days of websites, the 1990s, we had a situation where it was pretty much 100% owned by IT. You had basic HTML and CSS, and CSS coming in the mid-90s, new coding languages that came in. You see across the 90s, frameworks for devs, but really not, except maybe some light enterprise content management systems, and Cold Fusion and a few others, but really you don't see that accessibility for a business user until later. I refer to this kind of as the send a ticket kind of era. This is all part of the Web 0.0 movement. And then enter, 2000, right, where, Drupal first came out in 2000, some other open source content management systems came into being. So at this point, you have kind of a templated business user access to enter content in, but really this is still built and managed by IT with some basic templates that are put into place. You also have, coming up in 2003, an expansion on that with the launch of things like WordPress and Squarespace. So this is really kind of that birth of the blogger era, right? And now we're firmly in Web 2.0, where individuals have the ability to control and build their own templated sites. And that gets expanded by the building platforms time, where you see things like Wix and Weebly enter the market, which aren't necessarily content management systems per se, but are building platforms that allow you to individually create different types of websites. This was really where there was a kind of e-commerce and mobile support, not quite there, but e-commerce with Shopify was just about getting there. And if you recall back in 2006 to 2010, and even a little bit today, I refer to this as the I'm sick of your ad era, because those Wix ads ran on TV pretty much nonstop, constantly. Then you jump into 2010. This is the everybody and your mom can build a website era. The platforms have evolved to a point where it's very, very simple to go build these things.